Dr. Jeffrey Halstead has been Canandaigua's hometown dentist for more than 35 years, offering routine dental care as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures by their highly trained and experienced staff. Visit them online at canandaiguadentistry.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram.
Do you want to know what's happening in the Finger Lakes? We do too. We're going in depth with decision makers in the heart of upstate New York to get the answers you need. From the team of FingerLakes1.com, this is Inside the FLX.
All right, welcome back to Inside the FLX. It is the end of the month, and that means it is time to catch up with Auburn Mayor Jimmy Giannettino. Mayor, thanks so much for being here today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So obviously, big headline out of Auburn in the last week and a half or so, $91 million price tag that was floated around, or the money coming in to address wastewater treatment facilities in the city. Talk to us about that. That is a big number.
It is a big number, and it's the number that caused a lot of us a lot of anxiety. But it really was a necessary investment into our wastewater treatment plant. It's been a lot of years since there's been any investment. It made sense. We knew that this funding was going to become available through a number of channels, one of them being the bipartisan infrastructure law. There was a lot of debt coming off the books from the last investment that was done down there. And Seth Jensen, Director of Municipal Utilities, I think back in 2016, started to work on really a master plan of what infrastructure investments needed to be done to sewer and water. And thank goodness he did, because this money became available. And it makes sense for a number of reasons. We know that there's going to be a lot of economic development in the region. Those folks investing in communities are going to be looking for things like water and sewer infrastructure. We will have the capacity. So it is an economic development tool. The other thing is the way we currently handle wastewater at the wastewater treatment plant is not the best. It's an old way. It creates a sludge. The sludge is not stable. We're transporting on roads to landfills. The DEC has kind of put us on notice that this is not the preferred way. The cost of disposing of that sludge has increased exponentially. I think we're up over $1 million a year for those disposal costs. This will basically eliminate that fee, which we can use to pay on the debt, and it makes us more environmentally friendly. So it just made sense all the way around.
How you kind of mentioned it there, but really talk to us a little bit about how important the planning piece is when it comes to securing state or federal funds. It seems like that is always a common theme. The state and federal entities always want to see municipalities who are planning years in advance for things like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the results speak for themselves. The fact that we've been able to not only secure this funding, but if you look across the board, the amount of state and federal money that our city staff brings in on a regular basis, I think we're probably second to none. This was one of the largest awards. And nobody knew that there was going to be this bipartisan infrastructure law coming down the pike. But I think the moral of the story is be ready, right? Because you never know when this funding is going to become available.
Absolutely. Number one question we've gotten over the last month or so from folks who are reading and listening, FingerLakes1.com, street paving, what's happening in the city? What is coming down the pike this summer? It seems like this is paving season. So what can you tell us about known projects that are going to be taking place in the city this summer?
Sure. So the paving started on the 17th of June. It seems to be moving along on schedule. We do a really good job. Not we, city staff. I don't want to take credit for it. They do a really good job of communicating to the public what streets are going to be worked on. All that information can be found on our website. We do have some additional funding available, and we've talked about other projects to do. One of the projects that I'm pushing pretty hard is State Street, from the State Street Bridge right past Curley's, all the way down to Perrine Street. Obviously, the bridge was done a few years ago. From Perrine to the city line was done in different sections. That street's in pretty bad shape. I'd like to get that finished up. Another reason I'd like to get that finished up is if you look at that area of the city, it's really an extension of our downtown. The folks at Curley's invested a lot of money there. They brought that business back to life. And I think that with some investment from the city into the infrastructure, we can extend that progress down the street. So I'm hoping that we can get a change order here pretty soon and get that on the agenda and get that done this year. And I on the topic of road money, I want to give a shout out to State Senator Rachel May. One of the things that we've communicated to her continuously is the need for more road money. And we have seen a significant increase in that, and she's been integral in that.
How important has that been, given that the cost of doing that kind of even maintenance work has skyrocketed over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years?
It's vital. The thing is, as a local government, we're responsible for roads, we're responsible for bridges. But the reality of it is we don't have the resources to pay for all those things as a local government. And that's why it's important the federal and state government invest in local municipalities and provide funding for these jobs. And again, thank goodness that our city staff does the work that they do to secure that funding for us.
Yeah. And on sort of an economic development front, I guess, because this will inevitably, I assume, become one. Catholic Diocese obviously announced that there will be another church closure in the city of Auburn. We've seen these sorts of properties shutter across the whole region, Palmyra, Macedon, Geneva, and we've seen some developers sort of have piqued interest in them long term, but we haven't really seen any projects get to the finish line. When you look at some of these properties like this and you look forward in the city of Auburn, what do you hope to see happen with them as they do go from an operating church to potentially something else down the road?
Sure. So first and foremost, we need to see transparency from the diocese or any other church that is facing this, not just the Catholic Church. And unfortunately, I don't feel that there's been that in this process. I did talk with city staff yesterday. I plan to send a letter to the bishop, just asking, what is the plan and how can we work together to make sure that this property or any other church doesn't fall into disrepair. It is not our responsibility as a city to make sure that doesn't happen, but we can be a partner in helping that happen. And, if we can help secure any types of funding, we'd be happy to, look into that for them. But there has to be transparency. I'm a little encouraged by the fact that I know the diocese has worked really hard to sell the Holy Family School, the old Blessed Trinity School. I believe that the rectory from St. Alphonsus has been sold as well. So there does seem to be an appetite to move those properties. But we need to talk about what the future of Holy Family is. It's a personal thing for a lot of people in this community. And we understand that and we appreciate that. But yeah, there needs to be collaboration for sure.
I want you to put the dreamer hat on. When you think about, obviously, this building beyond its life as a church, what are some of the things that come to mind as a possibility in your mind?
Yeah, so I don't want to offend anybody, but I'll say what I've seen in other communities. How about that? And it's funny, friends of mine just went down to Homer earlier in the week for a concert, and it is a venue that is in a former church. So there have been things like that where we've seen reuses. I do know that there's a group of people here that want to preserve Holy Family as a landmark. So again, I'm open to discussions on any possible reuses. But we do have to have those conversations because we can't allow them to fall into disrepair.
For sure. Cannabis zoning changes. What can you tell us about the vote that took place earlier this month?
Yeah, so that was a vote we basically had to have when the legalization of cannabis was coming down the pike. We took some proactive steps to update our zoning so that we could, protect the integrity of neighborhoods and things like that. Same thing you do with bars, right? Bars and liquor stores, there's rules that go along with those things. What we found was our zoning was more restrictive than the state allows. So we had to modify our zoning to meet state law.
We've seen the state now sort of crack down on some of the illicit cannabis operations. Obviously, Auburn hasn't seemed to have too big of an issue with that. When you see the state taking a more authoritative role on this, do you think it'll make things easier in terms of kind of integrating with this modern approach to cannabis?
I do. I'm going to be critical and I'm going to offer a positive thought. The rollout of the legalization of cannabis in this state was not ideal. Let's just say that. And it surprised me a little bit because, I think we were like the 14th state that had done this. And I know other states had experienced problems. And I don't feel like there was an effort to kind of understand what those problems were before we did it here. Now, the positive thought that I'll offer is that any interaction we've had with the Office of Cannabis Management has been very positive. They've been very cooperative with us. They understand our concerns about the illicit sales. They share those concerns. If you look at what happened with I'm Stuck, they acted very decisively, and we appreciate that. We do continue to share our thoughts with them, and we're hoping, there are 2 pending licenses for legal cannabis shops here in the city. And we're hoping that if those come to fruition, that they will basically close the market for the illicit stuff.
Yeah, certainly. Let's talk about city ambulance service. It is expanding, it seems. What goes into a decision like that to expand? I'm assuming there's a dialogue that's happening, not just within the city and city government, but also neighboring communities too.
Yeah, so EMS nationwide is at a breaking point. Jeff Dygert, the city manager, former fire chief, he's very in tune with the struggles of EMS, and he stays up to date on that, and he shares that information with us on a regular basis. We did take some criticism a few years ago when we made the decision to take over the ambulance service in the city of Auburn, but we can see from the results that was the right decision. We've been in Albany a couple times for conferences, and one of the number one things municipalities are talking about in these conferences is their struggles with EMS. And then we explain the fact that we took it over and we established a municipal ambulance service. People just added, like, how did you do that? Because we don't even know where to start. So, with the announcement that the AMR had to pull out of the area because of their struggles, conversations started happening. I want to give credit to Jeff Dygert and to Wasco Town Supervisor Ed Wagner. It's not always easy and popular for municipalities to cooperate on this level. But Ed has shown time and again that he's willing to do that, whether it's with water quality or ambulance service. And, Ed saw a need in his town, and he saw an opportunity to partner with us. So, this is kind of a pilot. We'll see how it goes. I expect it to go well. And again, I think it just shows we made the right decision a few years back. And hopefully this can serve as a model for some type of regionalization.
Yeah, we're hearing about challenges in EMS service across the entire region, especially with regard to volunteerism declining, and then of course the cost that goes into actually operating a service like this. When you think about what Auburn did and being a little bit ahead of the curve, I would say, especially here in the region, how much do you feel like Auburn's become a blueprint a bit for other municipalities or even communities who are going to have to sort of rethink things over the next 4, 5, 6 years?
I think that's 100% correct. And I'll just go back to what I said a couple minutes ago with our conversations and interactions with other municipalities at NICOM. They asked a ton of questions. I know that they continue to reach out to Jeff, and he continues to have those conversations, not only in his capacity as city manager, but oftentimes he'll travel on his time off. And I always joke with him. I said, you should take a vacation, not go to all these conferences. But he stays active in the fire service and in the EMS world. So I do think that we are the blueprint for success and how this can work for municipalities.
I want to end on a real positive note here. The Harriet Tubman Church has officially reopened. We are just in the beginning of what I'd say is the heart of tourism season. How significant is that for the city, and how excited are you to have that location open for the public here?
Yes, so significant on a number of levels and super excited. This is a long time coming. There's been folks that have been working on this for decades, and it was really such a beautiful thing to witness, Josh. As mayor, I had the opportunity to sit up on the stage, so I had a direct, look into the audience, and there were several of Harriet Tubman's descendants there. One who is 96, one who is 87. And, I know that they found a lot of joy and happiness in seeing this project come to fruition. I say all the time, there's no greater honor in this country than to have a national park designated in your honor. And I said in my remarks that Harriet Tubman, in my view, saw promise in Auburn. That's why she came here. And we had an opportunity last Saturday to deliver on that promise to Harriet Tubman. I think that it is a look into the future of what can happen with the South Street property as well. The National Park Service is the keeper of our nation's treasures, and they do a fantastic job. And I encourage everybody to stop down there, take a look at the church and the parsonage. And, I stood in that church, and I stood at the front of the church, and I just realized that this was the place that Harriet Tubman worshiped, and this is the place that Harriet Tubman's funeral was held. And it was a very special moment.
Yeah, definitely. Looking ahead to July, my last question for you here today is simple. What's the biggest thing that you're watching for City Council to address or talk about in July?
So, now that the budget's done, we've got obviously the task of coming up with a replacement for Jeff Degert. He announced that he's not going to renew his contract. I give him credit for letting us know a year ahead of time. So Council is going to have to start looking at how we're going to address that process and start looking for his replacement. The other thing I think I'd say I want to start concentrating on a little bit is, and I don't want to call them codes issues because then that indicates that there's an issue with the codes department, but property issues in the city. And we've taken some steps with the nuisance abatement committee, with the neighborhood cleanup crew, and there's been positive impact there. But I think there's more work to be done. We have an aging housing stock, and being designated a pro-housing community, I think it gives us some resources potentially to address some of those issues. We owe it to the people of the city, and I think that we need to put our best foot forward with Micron emerging in Onondaga County and showing that Auburn's a great place to live.
All right, Mayor, as always, thanks for the time. We'll be talking to you next month.
Josh, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.